I am Benjamin Rush. You recognize me because you no doubt have passed me many times on the Rush campus, standing this way, right? With quill in hand. In my other hand is the charter for Dickinson College. I'm glad to be here for a number of reasons. One is, it's good to change position. I've been frozen in bronze for the past many years. And someone said, you're gonna come out, meet an audience here this afternoon and have a chance to take a walk up High Street. And I said, that's kind of very good. So I've loosened my joints and it feels good to walk again. At the end of this talk, I'm gonna return to my bronze place on the campus, where I am a presence and an influence continually and will be forever since 1783. And I'm bringing now to the moment of 1783. I'm going to click my fingers basically and say that, you know, there's something called living history. Living history is when you see or represent a setting or costume or something and it puts you in some other time frame. So there's the click, here's the setting, and we are standing in front of Old West. I'm here to tell you that this opportunity for me to tell you this story is very meaningful. I had a dream many years ago during the Revolutionary War that I would one day form a new college. We had all these standard colonial colleges in the college. There are 9 of them, and they're all enrolling upper level, elite, rich students who could go to the Harvards and the Yales and the Browns and all those. My idea was that I want to start a college way out in what I call the hinterland, like Carlisle. What goes on in Carlisle? Well, they have a couple nice churches there. They have a courthouse, many farms, and they have a Latin school. A Latin school. Imagine that. The Latin school, or so-called maybe even the grammar school. Imagine this, when they taught liberal arts to young boy students, liberal, the address of the Latin school was Liberty Lane. And you can still find Liberty Lane if you walk down High Street, take a right turn on something like Bedford. Very soon you'll come to Liberty Lane on the left. Halfway down Liberty Lane was a grammar school, or a Latin school, where they taught teenage boys Latin, Greek, geography. I thought it was such a great idea. This little town, Farmington, was teaching Latin, you know. And I thought it was such a great idea. My image, my dream, was that one day we would take college level teaching way out to Carlisle, where they have a Latin school already in operation. Maybe we could link up somehow with the Latin school and get things going that way. So, as I mentioned, here we are, 1783. What just happened? They signed a peace treaty in Paris just a few days ago, ending the Revolutionary War, September 3rd, 1783. 6 days later, the charter for Dickinson College was signed. I like to think, therefore, that the first piece of business in now the new nation, United States of, let's say, America, we could also call it the United States of freedom. We could also call it the United States of democracy. But 6 days after they signed that peace treaty, we are now an independent country. No more King George III. King George's only credentials to become King of England was his DNA, right? He was the House of Windsor, something like that. And that was good enough. He was the ruler. He was the authority in England, in the British Empire. When we signed that peace treaty with Britain, and by the way, it was a world war because we fought in the war with Britain, France, Spain, Netherlands, and America. That qualifies for a world war. When that peace treaty was signed, we became ourselves and we said, okay, now we have to run this like a government. We have to run this like a country. We'd never done it. All we had is 13 independent colonies. And each colony did a different thing. The idea was, now we have to get this together. So what we did to get this together was we signed something. Let's sign. And here's my writing utensil. You never see this out of my hand, by the way. we signed the charter of Dickinson College. So you do great things when you sign an authority like that. The other thing we did really was, we say, okay, now we're gonna run this like a country. We don't have a king anymore. This is called democracy. Demos, which in Greek means of the people. Kratos in Greek means strength. Strength of the people. That's what democracy is, with very small d, as you know. So then that took on that. I said, now how do you run a democracy? Well, you form organizations, you form a board. And you know what gets done, if you don't have a boss or a king or anymore, you have to form a board. So we are now, but I have this idea, we'll have a college in Carlisle. How's this get going? Let's form a board. And boards get things done of the people, by the people sitting around the table. So I'm going to now show you what took place for that to happen. As I mentioned, I linked up with the principal of the Latin school. His name is John Montgomery. And I think I said, you know, I get hold of him and say, John Montgomery, let's you and I meet in Philadelphia and talk to somebody there. We'll need some money. He needs some money to run this Latin school. I know I'll need money to run this new college, whatever you're going to call it. I don't know. So I think at this time, I'm going to have John Montgomery come to Philadelphia with me. We are going to meet at the home of Mr. William Bingham. Bingham, see his name over there? Mr. William Bingham was the richest man in America. He bought banks, he bought land, he built roads, he did investing. That's why we wanted to meet him, because he was wealthy. So, this is John Montgomery. And John Montgomery, now, when Mr. Bingham said we could use his house, he was going to be in London at the time. So he said, I won't be home, but you can sit on my porch. Here we are on the porch.
Dr. Rush, a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining me here on this lovely porch. And thank you also for all the wonderful things you've done for my family, especially our son William, taking him under your wing in the field of medicine. But I have some things to bring to you today on this porch. Unfortunately, Mr. Bingham is not here. Mr. Bingham is actually over in Europe, over in India, raising money for this.
No surprise.
Takes one to know. But as you know, I have been very active with the Latin School on Liberty Avenue here in Carlisle. But I've come to Philadelphia as a representative in the General Assembly, hoping that I might be able to get the General Assembly to give us a grant, walking around one, something along those lines. I think this might be the first grant that was ever given, but I am hopeful that your assistance, your use of the pen will help me, because I'm not a man of words like you are. And you can probably help us get this Latin school off the ground, because it needs substantial work. What do you think?
Well, John, I have a bigger idea. A much bigger idea. While elementary education in Latin and history and English and geography is necessary for our young students to obtain early in life, I believe that an advanced academic degree is required in which one's full intellectual potential can be achieved. I'm particularly committed to the concept that courses in the liberal arts, liberal wanting to liberate the mind, free the mind, at the college level, allow one to liberate or free his mind to the exploration of all life's opportunities. College institutions, which after all award graduate degrees, prepare one for the positions of leadership in the community, for careers in teaching in any of the professions, in governance, or in the exploration of the sciences. While I appreciate that the grammar school on Liberty Lane is adequate for the local population, the potentials for a grammar school, the potentials for a full-fledged college to reach beyond the confines of this little farming town and towards the western parts of the country are vast. I'd like to think that the Latin school, institutional as it is, can serve as a preparatory experience for students committed to a higher standard of learning at the college level. I believe also that energies, funding, and patronage. After from winning our independence from Britain, I will tell you, John, that the concept and the efficacy for this college burns hot in my mind, like an inner fire. I believe that these academic fulfillments can be achieved by natural means, steadily working out the will of God. Indeed, civilization, human knowledge, and liberty must and will pervade the globe, I think. I'd like to maybe, at this point in this first, hear this phrase, where I say, freedom is made safe through character and through learning. Freedom is made safe through character and through learning. Yeah.
Obviously, Dr. Rush, you've thought about this more than I expected, and I applaud you on your enthusiasm and your determination. Do you think there is some way that we might be able to collaborate, somehow be able to integrate the staff and the faculty that we have, albeit small, but what we have in the Latin School?
Yes. Thank you, John, for your agreeable response. I intend to make a home visit next week with Mr. John Dickinson. And as you say, I believe that utilizing the facilities from the Latin School, funding which may come, and the faculty, we will be able to transfer some of these things into the
We
college.
have had some success with funding from the General Assembly, and the Presbytery of Donegal, I think, might be
That's right.
open to that as well.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Dickinson and I are going to talk. He and I already have talked a number of times. He, in fact, is agreeable to serve on the board that I'm going to put together to run this college. He's also agreed to submit, to provide us a significant amount of money to it. And I'll mention also to Mr. Dickinson the names I have in mind for the rest of the board, which I'll just recite now at this time, so you know. He himself, John Dickinson, of course, Duke, John Montgomery, having come from the Latin School, will be part of the board. I'm going to also notify and get the agreement with John Armstrong, who's like the mayor or supervisor of Carlisle. James Wilson, who was born in Scotland, immigrated to the United States, to America at age 23. He soon became Justice of the Supreme Court. He will be also the one writing the charter for his college. So that's James Wilson. Robert Davison, I thought, I'm going to have some Presbyterians on this organization. Presbyterian figured high in the funding and the support and the notice of this college. So thanks to the Presbyterian. So I've asked Robert Davidson, who's the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church up here on the square, to be on this. He agreed to do that. John Campbell is the church across the street, St. John's Church. There's a picture of St. John's Church up there on the square that it was. He has agreed also to serve on the board as representative of St. John's Episcopal Church. James Ross, who's a faculty member at the Latin School, he's going to serve on the board and continue to teach. Probably once we transfer him to Dickinson College, where he will teach Latin. John Black is an important person in the Presbyterian organization. He's going to serve on the board. He represents the Presbyterian Donegal. And Erasmus Middleton has agreed to be our star.
We had to have someone other than someone with the name John or
Right.
James.
Everyone else.
Erasmus.
Right. So he figured Erasmus will be a nice change. I think it is, don't you think? And Erasmus is going to speak to us when it's his chance about the philosophy of education, the philosophy of teaching liberal arts. Not just the subject matter, what's it mean philosophically to teach liberal arts and that kind of. I'll mention one more name I want to say on this meeting between us, that I've had some initial contact and written a letter to Dr. Charles Nisbet. He's in Scotland. He's educated at the University of Edinburgh. And I have in mind nominating Pastor Dr. Nisbet to be the first president of our college. And I believe he's probably going to agree to come.
Wonderful.
So I think we're taking good steps. I got some faculty in mind and some funding that we may be able to transfer to the faculty too. I think that it's a good place to move on.
And I will go get ready to meet you in Carlisle when they hear.
Okay, that's good. All right. Before you actually go, I'll say, I'm gonna have one more meeting, after this, the porch meeting. I'm gonna speak with Mr. Dickinson at his home next week. I wanna have a purely ceremonial meeting at Independence Hall. I believe we have to look at Independence Hall as the birthplace of freedom, the birthplace of independence. And that's where our General Assembly met. That's where we signed the Declaration of Independence. And that's where I think the first idea of Dickinson College came to be imagined or maybe pronounced in this hall. So I'm going to take a little group of us, go to Independence Hall and have a meeting there just to kind of put the order of philosophy or independence solidified. There it is. So I think we're ready to go now. At this point, I think we will have our next meeting in Carlisle on April the 6th. Today's date, right? Is today April 6th?
Yes.
Okay. We're gonna have our next meeting in Carlisle, and the Board of Trustees has been assembled, and they will now enter. Greetings to the first Board of Trustees meeting of Dickinson College. Thank you, gentlemen. Good, we're all together, unified, in our nice order of seating and arrangement here. We're going to start with this now because the church was part of everything going on, meetings and boards and deliberations. We're going to start this meeting with an invocation from Pastor John Campbell, who's the rector of St. John's Episcopal Church. He will start us off with an invocation. Please.
Let us pray. Almighty God, the source of all knowledge and the giver of all grace, pour out, we beseech thee, the spirit of truth upon thy servants here assembled, that we may fully know what is pleasing unto thee and may follow where thou dost lead. Give us grace to accomplish that which is set before us, and to seek whatsoever the things that are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, and whatsoever things are of good report. And grant this, we humbly beseech thee, for the sake of our only mediator and advocate, Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to have us just go down the line and have each of our members stand briefly and say who they are and what they represent.
You already met me. I'm John Montgomery. I was involved with the Latin School, very involved with things in Carlisle, although maybe not as much as the gentleman who will follow me. I was a storekeeper, a soldier, a farmer, a judge, and a politician, serving in the General Assembly, eventually serving in Congress. I was considered a conservative in an age when conservatism still had forward-looking affirmations. And one of those, close to me, close to the church and the community, was the Latin School. And so it was a pleasure for me to meet with Dr. Rush and to move that concept forward. I will say this, although not today perhaps, but because I was involved with the school more hands-on than some, I was actually a very active trustee, serving many different capacities, and as you'll see later this morning, or this afternoon, as treasurer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm General John Armstrong, and as some of you may refer to me as, I am the first citizen of Carlisle. I was born in Ireland in 1717, and I left in 1740, volunteering to be the lead surveyor west of the Susquehanna from the Penn family who had proprietors in Pennsylvania. As most of you know, as a lieutenant colonel in the Pennsylvania Regiment, supporting the British Crown, responded to some French-inspired attacks from native tribes and led about 300 frontier militiamen to a decisive victory at Kittanning near Fort Duquesne in 1756. You might notice when I sign later today, my shoulder is a bit wounded from that encounter. And that was actually the time I met a lifetime friend of mine, then Colonel George Washington, who were leading troops from Maryland and Virginia in that encounter. I was an outspoken supporter of our nation's War of Independence. I was commissioned as one of the first 6 brigadier generals supporting the Continental Army. And then later I would become a major general for the Pennsylvania militia. My tenure actually fighting the Revolutionary was somewhat mitigated by the fact that I was a delegate to the Continental Congress and served in that capacity. But after the wars, I returned here to Carlisle, and among other duties, I became a trustee of the Carlisle Grammar School. And I initially opposed Dr. Rush's plan to put a college here, but even I, an old soldier, couldn't stand up to the persuasive arguments that Dr. Rush gave.
My name is Erasmus. I've lost my page, Middleton. And I'm an Anglican minister. I'm an Anglican minister, educated in England and fairly recently in the United States. If Dr. Nisbet would appoint me to the Dickinson faculty, as Dr. Rush has suggested he should, what I will teach is moral philosophy, logic, and metaphysics. And maybe also, I'm told, fill the Episcopal Church pulpit in Carlisle on a half-time salary.
I am the Reverend John Black. Was born in North Carolina and educated at the College of New Jersey in Princeton. Then became a Presbyterian pastor, serving the congregation of Upper Marsh Creek in York County near Gettysburg. I have been elected again and again by the Presbytery of Donegal, the local gathering of churches, as their stated clerk. And I'm joining the Board of Trustees as a connection to the Presbyterian Church, because most of our students, faculty will be Presbyterian, and one of our primary aims will be to educate young men as Presbyterian clergy to fill pulpits on the frontier of our expanding country.
I am John Dickinson. I am a friend, a dear friend of Dr. Rush's. I am a supporter. I am a financial supporter of Dickinson College. I believe in Dr. Rush's vision. I have been privileged to serve as the governor of both Pennsylvania and of Delaware. I'm a patriot. I will, at some point, join the Constitutional Convention, and I will sign the Constitution of the United States. I stand foursquare in support of this new revolutionary institution.
My name is James Ross. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I am a dedicated student of the great Latin language. I wrote an important textbook called Ross's Onomasticon, which is used all over our new nation. I taught at the grammar school and became the first professor of Dickinson College. I am well known about town for composing Latin odes on contemporary events and reciting them to anyone who will listen. I'm rather genial in daily life, but in the classroom, I am known as a terror. I have a small cat o' nine tails, a little whip that I wear on my pinky. And when students are slow to learn their declensions, this is what I use to motivate them.
Could you sum it up in Latin, please? I mean, sum up, give two sentences in.
Good afternoon. I am John Campbell, and I've recently accepted the assignment as rector of the Anglican or Episcopal Church in York and Huntingdon, and the one here in Carlisle. While I have just come from England, I was born here in Cumberland County, in Shippensburg in 1749. I was a good student. I graduated from Princeton University at the top of my class in 1770. And I went on to study at the College of Philadelphia, where I decided to enter the Anglican priesthood. In order to do that, I went to England, where I was ordained in June of 1773, and I remained in England throughout the war for our independence. In fact, during that war, I lost a brother who was killed outside of Philadelphia. Though I had a very rewarding and comfortable parish assignment in England, my beloved wife Elizabeth and I have made the decision, as unusual as it is, to return to America to serve the frontier communities of my birth, and that is the reason why I accepted the current assignment. Dr. Rush knows me as one who loves learning. In addition, I will be able to serve the Board of Trustees and our new Dickinson College as one of the few several local residents of the community.
Good afternoon. My name is James Wilson. I'm a Scottish-born, prominent Pennsylvania lawyer, if I can say so myself. I am a believer in participatory democracy. I was an early supporter of independence. I wrote a pamphlet that actually was given more attention than the Federalist Papers with regard to her speech with regard to the adoption of the Constitution. I was very involved in drafting the United States Constitution, particularly the executive branch provisions. I was, in fact, called the most learned of the framers. I am one of 6 people to sign both the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. I became one of the initial Associate Justices of the United States Supreme Court, nominated by George Washington. I actually wanted to be Chief Justice, but he selected John Jay. I was a trustee of the Carlisle Latin Grammar School that preceded Dickinson College. I had what was considered then a small farm in the Carlisle area, but I practiced widely throughout the region. I wrote the first charter for Dickinson College with much input from Benjamin Rush. I was an active land speculator who later in life faced financial ruin and 2 short stays in debtor prison, including while riding circuit as an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
Good afternoon. I am the Reverend Robert Davidson, 3rd pastor of First Presbyterian Church here in Carlisle, the original ecclesiastical sponsor of our beloved college. I was born in 1750 in Elkton, Maryland, and went to college in Philadelphia. That's what brought me to Pennsylvania. Attended the College of Philadelphia, which is the forerunner of today's University of Pennsylvania. And then started my pastoral career in Philadelphia as an associate pastor at the First Presbyterian Church in the city of brotherly love. I was happy there, spent more than a decade there,
but was convinced by a mentor there to accept a position as a teacher at the Latin school here in Carlisle in 1783. So I moved here in Carlisle in 1784 with the intent of being a teacher of rhetoric and history. By happy accident, the First Presbyterian Church in Carlisle at the time was in need of a pastor. And I was happy to resume my career as a pastor and live out my life as a professor, pastor, professor, whatever day of the week it was. While at the church, I had the distinct honor of preaching a sermon to the father of our country and the first president, George Washington, when he came to Carlisle in 1794 as part of the mustering of troops to put down the Whiskey Rebellion. I was known for never giving a sermon that lasted more than 1 hour long. And according to my son's accounts, I was so strict about that rule that sometimes I even stopped in the middle of a sentence. So I'm nowhere near my limit right now. But I will say that I'm honored to be selected to be on the Dickinson board, and I believe that one of our congregation's fondest legacies to the community is ensuring that Carlisle was and always will be a college town.
Thank you very much. At this time, we are going to have John Dickinson administer the oath to the Board of Trustees. Well, I think we'll stand for this, shall we?
Gentlemen, the time has arrived. I'd ask you to raise your right hands. And I will ask you now, do you solemnly swear to carry out the duties as trustees of Dickinson College, as according to law, with probity, commitment, and in a manner consistent with all the ideals of this institution, so help me God? If so, say I do.
I do.
They are all duly sworn, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Now you may proceed. I think you have an oration to share with us. Proceed.
I do, Dr. Rush. On this auspicious occasion, I think it is fair and appropriate for me to make some remarks as the first president of this distinguished board of trustees. And I firmly believe that education is the very life of civilization. It is religious at heart and links present truth to the farthest ideals. We cherish its traditions and guard them closely. Today, in Carlisle, as we commence this meeting, we note that there is no sharp beginning to the tale. Rather, it comes upon that steady current of learning, indeed a love of learning, that is powerful, eager, and devout. This current sweeps ever forward, propelled by mystical longing, as it flows from Scotland to Ireland and now to this place in America. In Europe, colleges are comprised of students, faculty only, but in our new model that is Dickinson College, across the Atlantic, this institution acquires the third element, that is this board of trustees. The board that we convene today is a powerful and prestigious force that will administer the educational processes at this college. It will hire exemplary faculty, raise funds, and regulate the behavior of our students. It is my greatest honor to serve as the very first president of this august board. I charge now my fellow trustees to act with a sense of purpose and duty that is akin to religious faith, to always act according to the power conferred upon them by law, and to recognize that their commitment to this revolutionary college should be paramount in their lives. It is my prayer that the work we begin today will result in a college that will last for the ages. That it will produce an enlightened citizenry, indeed citizen leaders who will propel our new nation forward. Gentlemen, may it ever be thus.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Interesting too, this is kind of a board setting. We're going to have some business to do, but a big part of the meeting is that we're going to have a sermon delivered to us by our pastor, and the pastor now will proceed with the sermon, which was designed, read the account of this in the history book of Dickinson. This is right in order with what actually happened.
Give ye heed to the word of the Lord from 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Now, as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. But if any man love God, same is known of him. Brethren, you know how verbose Presbyterian pastors be. An hour might only be the start of the sermon. Well, Dr. Davidson tends to preach for an hour. I tend to preach for 45 minutes. But today, perhaps, for 4 or 5. Brethren, the apostle writes of a lifelong quest for learning. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. Here on the frontier, where we know the reality of want for material goods, want for learning, here on the frontier where learning has at times been scarce and precious, and we have had to hold on to it with great tenacity, we gather today in order to make a promise to the future that this school of learning, among the first founded in our young nation, will be a beacon for generations to come. If we are to succeed as a nation, our people must be educated in order to govern with wisdom and with charity. And if we are to continue to send forth ministers of the gospel to plant new churches in our ever-expanding frontier, we must commit to their education, formation, and development. No longer can we afford to travel far to the East Coast or back to Britain for our educations. We must provide it here, in our midst, the humble hope that our graduates will not be puffed up, but will be edified by the love of God in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Now, Erasmus Middleton will take on the topic dealing with the concept of the philosophy, not just the words, but the philosophy of liberal arts. What is the philosophy of something that is written a certain way and look at it philosophically? So proceed, Erasmus, please.
Dickinson is the first college west of the Susquehanna. Because of its potential and importance, we need to design our academic program so that it provides our students with a genuinely liberal arts education. Students typically come to college thinking that what's important is to earn their degree in some specialized set of courses like mathematics or history or belles lettres, and then get a job that needs those specialized skills. But there is something far more important for students to learn in the 4 years they are with us. It's to learn how to learn. To learn how to go about learning any subject matter. To have the ability to switch from mathematics to chemistry or physics, or from history to Greek and Latin, or from belles lettres to philosophy,
That is, our students need to have the ability to change their aims, to learn something new. To do so just out of interest that they've developed, or because they want to change a major in order to change what kind of job they want to hope for after graduation, or indeed so that they will be able to change to a different job after years of working in one field. Learning how to learn is learning how to expand your horizons, how to explore new areas of study, how to explore new dimensions of one's present area of study, how to imagine a different approach to what they think they know thoroughly, and then to make that new approach work. Always a liberal arts student should want to learn more, because there's always more they need to learn, or more they would simply enjoy learning, or more they decide is worth the risk of trying to learn. Yes, you see, at Dickinson, let us help our students prepare for a career, but let us also encourage them to explore alternatives, to expand their horizons. How we do this is by teaching our students to learn how to learn for themselves, so that they will feel there is nothing they can't learn if they apply themselves to doing so. Knowing how to go about learning new things is what gives them the qualities of character and liberty promised by the Dickinson seal.
Thank you very much. At this time, Mr. Dickinson and I are going to present what we have put together, the seal. Myself and John Dickinson have designed this seal, and it has all kinds of symbolic significance. And we are going to, oh, you financial report, okay, that's slightly out of order. Financial report is next before the seal, so proceed, Mr. Montgomery.
I would not be the one to tell you what anything on that seal means. Nor perhaps my good friend, General.
That's my badge.
That's your badge. I'm sorry. I always do that. Forgive me, please. But I was a storekeeper, so that's why I'm a treasurer. And we could use some more money. Mr. Dickinson will come through with a big gift, £1,000, as will the gentleman to my left. We had the help of the General Assembly. We hoped to have more. We hoped to have a lot more help from a lot of other institutions. We did not get that. But we are in a position with land on the western end of town, thanks largely to Mr. Armstrong, who is the surveyor of the town. So I'll hand this over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Gentlemen, as most of you know, before I became an officer and a lawyer, my original profession was civil engineering, which brought me here. In fact, 33 years ago, I was in fact the person who did the original mapping for Carlisle, which was in the year that we were recognized by the Pennsylvania legislature and the Penn family as a distinct borough. So I do tell you all here today, as Carlisle superintendent, I am resolved to preserving and maintaining parcels of land on the western reaches of the borough that shall be reserved for the college. Thank you.
And this to Mr. Ross and you. Mr. Ross, Professor Ross, be able to discuss this and he's translate it for us and give us some analysis.
Salve, discipuli.
Salve, minister.
Omnes homines, qui ses praestant cateris animalibus, debent summa ope niti, me vitam silentio transeunt, venti pecora, quae natura prona et ventri obedientia finxit, nos et nobis, omnis vis in animo et corpore sita est.
I don't think anybody else knows Latin.
Well, they not even know.
I
No,
don't know any Latin.
I have to do it in English. I'm sorry. Okay. If history tells us one crucial fact, it is that a republic is a fragile thing. The best hope, if ours is to endure, is the leadership of cultivated college men, made virtuous citizens. The Greek and Roman classics, my friends, are a library of eloquence and reason that form the sentiments, polish the tastes, fertilize and enlarge the minds of the young. Above all, it is eloquence, the eloquence of a free citizen, the eloquence of a Cicero that will endure, that will make our liberty endure. We need as many classically educated citizens as possible to avoid the twin perils, the Scylla of democratical licentiousness and the Charybdis of oligarchic tyranny. Only a classically educated citizenry can withstand corruption and the inevitable forces of decay. What, I ask you, is the educational gateway to this civic virtue? Latin, of course. That is why we must have our seal in Latin. Here it is. It goes as follows. Pietate, say it, pietate, et doctrina, libertas. Okay, pietate. This means piety, character, virtue. Et doctrina means, of course,
doctor.
learning. And tuta means safe. And libertas, of course, is liberty. Okay, so through piety, through character, and learning, safe is liberty. There are symbols on the seal itself. 3. 1 is a book, representing, of course, the Bible. The Bible. Of course. The telescope. That's observation, learning, study. Then the last is this little hat. What's the little hat? The little hat is the cap of liberty. This is the hat that Roman slaves would wear when they were when they earned their freedom and shaved their heads and put on what's called the pileus, the hat of liberty. The murderers of Julius Caesar, after they finished their bloody deed, put on the cap of liberty. All right, one more time. Pietate et doctrina tuta libertas. Beautiful words. Gratias vos.
At this time, I would like to nominate, bring for your consideration, the name of Dr. Charles Nisbet to be the president of the college. He's in Stockholm at the present time.
I second that nomination.
Let me read to you a little bit about his background. He was, Charles Nisbet again, his name was mentioned, I've heard his name mentioned first in 1767, when I was in Edinburgh myself studying medicine, and I heard his name at that time. His name came up a second time when I went to a graduation exercise at Princeton, and he received a Doctor of Divinity degree, honorary from Princeton University at that time, New Jersey College of New Jersey in Princeton was formerly. Well, I'm going to mention a couple of things about his background. Yes, he got his Doctor of Divinity degree from the University of Edinburgh. He served in Scotland on the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. He was fluent in Hebrew, Greek, Latin, French, Spanish, and German. He was an avid reader. He has memorized Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, memorized. Dr. Nisbet, by the way, was an outspoken sympathizer for the American independence. While he was still he was in our camp, even before he got here, which I think was nice. I'm prepared to write Dr. Nisbet, an invitational letter pending your vote of approval. Here are some of my strong entreaties I will mention in my letter to him, saying this. The American life, its prosperity and future is destined by heaven to exhibit to the world the perfection which the mind of man is capable of receiving from the combined operation of liberty, learning, and the gospel. I've taken pains, Dr. Nisbet, to direct the attention of our board in favor of voting for you. Dickinson College, when you come here, will be the first independent college in America under your leadership. It will be the key to the Western world. Anticipating Dr. Nisbet's positive response to this nice letter, I'll write him again when he's preparing to leave. I'll tell him this, that when he decides to come, we'll meet you in Carlisle with our board. The courthouse bell will ring as you approach. And as you cross the Latin schoolhouse threshold, an address of welcoming will be made by John Dickinson. At this point, I'll have nominated. Is there a second for Dr.? Second. All in favor of Dr. Nisbet being our first president? Aye. Good, thank you very much. At this time now, we're going to just go through, just in general, say something about faculty, because faculty, there wasn't much faculty yet to equip a full college. But I'll say the subject we're going to have faculty join us in. We, of course, already have Professor Davidson and Professor James Ross. In other areas, we're going to have the faculty join us for geography, world history, mathematics, philosophy, classics, astronomy, religion, and the Bible. Thank you. Now, Pastor Campbell will please provide us with a benediction.
Let us pray. O God, by whose word all things that we do are hallowed, pour, we beseech thee, thy blessing upon us and upon this endeavor which we have undertaken, and grant that we may thankfully receive whatsoever the needs of this present life require. And may the Lord bless us. May the Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May the Lord lift the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments and your input and your presence and your philosophies and your dedication. At this time, we're going to formalize this charter by having members step forward and sign the charter, which is here. Use, of course, my will sign. And we will now proceed with that. As we do that, James Wilson will be reading some aspects of the charter himself.
We'll begin with the written portion of the oath taken by the trustees. We, the trustees of Dickinson College in the state of Pennsylvania, having severally sworn or affirmed that we will be true and faithful to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and that we will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing prejudicial or injurious to the Constitution or government thereof as established by the convention. And that the state of Pennsylvania is, and of right ought to be, a free, sovereign, and independent state, and that we do forever renounce and refuse all allegiance, subjugation, and obedience to the king or crown of Great Britain, and that we never have, since the Declaration of Independence, directly or indirectly, assisted, abetted, or in any wise countenanced the king of Great Britain, his generals, fleets, or armies, or their adherents in their claims upon these United States.
Thank you all for signing. At this time, we're going to adjourn. The next step for us is to deliver this signed charter. We're going to walk across High Street and take it to the courthouse and file it with the courthouse so it's in permanent record over there. That ends our meeting. I want to say, just in review, that you have experienced what came from a dream of mine. I had a dream that would bring education to the public, make it available to the public where it may not otherwise be. The year was 1783 when that charter was signed and that thing came to be. It took lots of people time. It took a board. As you notice, many things to get done we have to do. We don't have a king or a boss anymore. We have elected officials. We put a board together and things got done. We build buildings. We have a committee. We do great things with that kind of leadership. So the board's concept, I think, is really what we took from the idea freedom, no king anymore. Remember George Washington said he would be president when the time came if he could preside over the Congress. He'd want to be boss. He said, I'll preside over the Congress. He didn't know what capital P-R-E, president, he didn't know what that meant. He said, I'll simply preside. That's all he wanted to do, because he didn't want to wear any brass and like that. He was a common democratic person. So thank you all for being here. We are now going to dismiss. I'm going to return at this point to my pedestal. I'll just snap my finger again. And 1783 has become 1783 has become April the 6th, 2024. Maybe go forward and keep the idea and practice and principles of Dickinson College alive to Carlisle, Cumberland County, and to the western parts of the United States.